Hey folks, Real Honesty with Charmethlan. I'm Charmethlan. You saw the best, which was my top 25 favorite horror movies, and now you get to see the top 100 worst horror movies. Which actually, now that I think about it, looking at it, it's more almost like a top 125 because I have some series glutted into one spot. But this is a series I thought about. I thought about doing the top 25 worst, and then I realized, oh wait, there's more, so I'll go up to 35. Then I'll go up to 50. Once I got past 50, I'm just like, oh, for God's sakes, let's just do let's just do a top 100. So, yeah, it's going to end up being more like a top 125 and stuff like that because I have some series glutted in. Because some of them all blend together, and honestly, that's really about all there is to it with a lot of horror movies. There is a lot of good horror movies. Like, I may even do another top 25 favorite horror movies. But these are ones that really were, quite frankly, shit. This is going to be a long-running series. I mean, I'm probably not going to have this done until sometime in November, maybe December, depending. But, and yes, there are going to be ones I forgot about. There are going to be some that I excluded. Just because maybe they were just exclusively DVD released and not like theatrical or even streaming. Some were just so bad that they deserve to be on a whole new list all their own. And I will also do a top 50 worst movies of all time list. Might even bump that up to a top 100, who knows. But, and by the way, thank you guys for putting up with the fact that I'm still getting over being ill, but I'm doing a lot better, so even though I'm coughing some, I'm actually in a lot better shape than I was. So I figured I'd knock one of these shows out. So anyway, long introduction. Here we go, so just bear with me as I do these shows. Number 100, The Omen, the 2006 edition, not the... And I mean, yes, The Omen 2 and 3 and I believe 4 deserve a mention, but The Omen 2006 feels like a missed opportunity. Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles back when they still had a career. Well, I mean, Liev Schreiber still has one because of the Ray Donovan series. Julia Stiles, less so. I'm not really aware that she's in too much stuff now, which is a shame because she seemed to have a pretty nice career going for a while. I liked her in Save the Last Dance and a few other movies. This one it was kind of like Psycho, the 98 Psycho version, which I will get to be a lot higher on this list. But The Omen feels like a missed opportunity where there's nothing wrong with trying to redo this. It was, of course, 30 years after the first one. But Liev Schreiber, as good as he is no Gregory Peck. And I love Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck's what made The Omen so good, even though there were other good performances in it too. This one just, it was a misfire. Some of the moments were creepy, but they weren't the same kind of creepy, and it was a doomed venture from the start. There's no reason why this should have happened. I get why it happened because they wanted to have it on 6606, so 666. But the movie just wasn't. They went more with the marketing campaign than they went with actually making the movie good. And unfortunately, it suffered. And it's a shame because Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles could have actually made this work pretty well. It just didn't. It ultimately didn't, and it ultimately flopped quite a bit. Number 99, Silent House. Girls stuck in a house and weird hauntings and shit like that. And it was done in a bunch of continuous takes. Done in like a series of long takes and stuff like that. And it was supposed to be presented in real time. Oh, what's happening? How can she, can she escape this? Can she do that? The thing is that the concept of the show was actually, or the concept of the movie was actually pretty interesting. And I was interested to see it. The problem is after the first about 15, 20 minutes, the bloom's off the rose, and then you gotta wait for the rest of it. It's not a long movie. I think it's like 80, 85 minutes at most. It feels like longer, but it's just not very good. The scares just really aren't there. The idea of doing long takes isn't necessarily a bad idea. It's certainly an adventurous one, and made it seem like where maybe it was filmed in a little more real time, but ultimately it fell really, really flat. As good as the concept could have been, it ultimately did not work. That's why it's here at number 99. Number 98, What Lies Beneath. I had this one admittedly a lot higher before. The reason I don't have it that high now is because looking back on it, Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford did their best. It was Robert Zemeckis tried to make it a very Hitchcockian homage. And I give Robert Zemeckis credit. I give Harrison Ford credit. I give Michelle Pfeiffer credit. The problem is this was a short story that was lengthened into a big movie. And it was so obvious what was going on. You can throw all the different plot points here and different plot points there and stuff like that, but we know Harrison Ford's a goddamn killer. I mean, I should have said spoilers, I suppose, but sorry. A lot of these movies have been out for a number of years. If you're not aware of the spoilers by now, well, I mean, come on. Like, sorry, but I mean, the movie's been out since I think 2000. 99, 2000, I think since 2000. It had some cool atmospheric stuff and everything, and the use of colors and the use of mood and music was actually pretty well done. There were just no scares, and there was just nothing to it, and it was just so obvious who the killer was, and it was ultimately very bland, despite the talent behind it. And that's why it's up here at number 98. It was actually up at number 60 before, and then I realized, no, as bad as the movie was, and it wasn't very good, it had the potential to be better. And it ultimately just wasn't. It just, even with all that talent, it just really wasn't all that good. There just wasn't a lot to it, and that's why it's here at number 98. Number 97, Queen of the Damned. I don't know why this one isn't higher, because it was shit. Stuart Townsend, Aaliyah, and Aaliyah, it's a shame that she died. She probably could have had a very nice career in Hollywood. I don't know if she still would have been acting. Might have gone the Ashanti route, or Ashanti, or however the hell you say her name. I only know one song of hers, and it was that song she did with Ja Rule, Always on Time, or whatever the hell it is. But with Queen of the Damned, it's like, Aaliyah, you couldn't pick her accent out of like anything. You could have had 10 countries to pick from, and couldn't have told, and I wouldn't have been able to tell you what her accent was from. Stuart Townsend, of course, his singing voice was Jonathan Davies of Korn. Remember Korn? Remember when they were popular? I remember when they were popular because they were popular about the time I was in high school. So this was 2002, and I was out of high school by then, after about, two years by then, and Korn wasn't even relevant at that point. But Queen of the Damned just wasn't scary. It was very muddy. It was very muddled. It was very weird. Like, the story didn't really add up. Maybe if I had read the book, it would have made more sense. But with what's presented in the movie, there just wasn't a lot to it. It really wasn't all that good. I don't know, just the scares, the gore, the performances just weren't that good. And I mean, Aaliyah showed promise here. She was in this, and I don't remember what the Jet Li movie was that she was in. Not the one, but it was something else. Maybe it was the one. I don't know. I know she was only in a handful of movies, and it's a real shame because she was very talented. She was a very talented R&B artist, and she's a very talented actress. So I'm not really trying to dog her, or even Stuart Townsend. Which, by the way, he was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was absolute shit. And I will literally fight anybody that wants to say that was a good movie, with words. I'm not going to actually fight with actions. In fact, if you guys thought it was a good movie, great. Stop taking drugs. Queen of the Damned was just bad. It was just really, really bad. Had potential, but considering that this was supposed to be like a follow-up to Interview with the Vampire, which was enjoyable despite the weird casting, this was a huge missed opportunity. And then number 96, Final Destination 4. Final Destination 4 was just one of those. The first one was the best movie type, like as far as like actual characters and stuff like that. The second one had the best opening sequence of the series. Fight me on that, because that freeway sequence was better than the plane sequence, and the plane sequence is tremendous. The third one had a good roller coaster one. This one, if I remember right, it had a racetrack one. This is the racetrack one, right? Because I mixed this and the fifth one up. And the fifth one deserves a mention also, but it's like one had a bridge and one had a racetrack. And it's just, it was just, neither one of them was really good. In fact, I'll just throw number 5 in here, The Final Destination. None of them were very good. Neither of those two were very good. But number 4 deserves a special mention because it felt like where 3 at least had some good stuff, especially with those girls being fried to death in those tanning beds. This felt like a huge drop-off in quality. I mean, admittedly, number 3 maybe wasn't all that great either, but it had some good kills. This one was just silly. And this one was just really, 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 really silly. Not that a lot of kills weren't already silly anyway. But Final Destination 4 feels like where the series finally just hit rock bottom. And then the 5th one just sunk it even lower. Which is hard to believe. But no real good performances, no real good stuff with it. There just wasn't a lot really to root for here. None of the performances are very good. The actors weren't really well known, which isn't always a bad thing in horror movies, but in this case they were clearly in over their head with the material. Like they weren't ready to do it, or maybe the production was rushed or something. None of the cast was terrible, but they clearly weren't up to the job here. It was not very good. Number 95, the number 23. I originally called this in an Amazon review the number 20Z because it was a snooze fest. Jim Carrey tried, and he tried to do something new, and that was fine. He did well. The thing is about this is it's all about conspiracy theories and stuff like that and everything, and not the movie Conspiracy Theory with Julia Roberts and Mel Gibson, where it showed Mel Gibson going insane. That movie actually was pretty accurate in predicting the future because Mel Gibson's justifiably insane now. Oh, but people love him because he changed, despite the anti-Semitic attitude that he had. Anti-Semitism. I always screw up the other word. But number 23, it was Jim Carrey trying to do something new, and I can't fault him for that. The problem is the movie just wasn't any good. It wasn't scary. It wasn't chilling. It wasn't interesting. And a concept of this is like, okay, watching Jim Carrey in a movie like this, like watching him in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which wasn't a horror movie, was actually pretty cool. But this just wasn't very good. I mean, it was just blah. It was very blah and very just not scary for some. And it's kind of like, to me, like Secret Window with Johnny Depp and I forget the other guy's name. He was in Godzilla, and he was also in the 98 Godzilla. No, that was Hank Azaria. He was in some of the Transformers movies. But he was in it. It's just the problem is in number 23, it just wasn't very good. It wasn't very good, even despite Jim Carrey trying to do something new. It wasn't scary, it wasn't chilling, didn't really have a good atmosphere. It was just messy. And number 94, The Haunting, 1999. House on Haunted Hill, the remake, is not on here because I enjoyed the House on Haunted Hill remake. I thought it was fun. It wasn't great. The original was better. But I liked the remake, the remake in 1999. Now, Return to House on Haunted Hill, okay, that's another story. I mean, maybe that one could have made this list, but that one's so insignificant, I'm just not even going to bother. But The Haunting in 99, I mean, you had Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Lily Tomlin, Owen Wilson, he was in. I mean, I always forget about Owen Wilson. That movie, with that cast in 99, should have worked. By the way, Catherine Zeta-Jones should have not tried to do an American accent at that point. Wonder what ever happened to her. Because she just fell off of acting really quickly. She wasn't that bad. But anyway. It just wasn't scary at all. I mean, the original was a lot better. I mean, the 1960 version, I believe 60-61, was a lot better because that's when horror presented some good stuff. In fact, I might even try to do, horror movies by the decade and do, movies in the 40s. It might be hard to do ones in the 30s. Might do ones in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. and stuff like that. But anyway, The Haunting just wasn't scary, just wasn't chilling. Just the weird, stone hand or hand reaching out and grabbing grabbing one of the actors just wasn't all that good. And this came out right around the time Deep Blue Sea came out, which, by the way, I enjoyed Deep Blue Sea, even as silly as it was. That at least was cool, and that Samuel Jackson jump scare of him getting eaten. It's like, man, I'm sick of these motherfucking sharks, this motherfucker, and he gets that. Yeah, and snakes on a plane. That's also going to appear on here. But The Haunting just wasn't good. It just wasn't. It just wasn't scary. Despite the cast, it was very boring, and it really kind of made me angry. I mean, it's like the ending in particular where I'm just like, okay, that's it. All right. That was pretty shit. And now, 93, Along Came a Spider. It just wasn't chilling. There just wasn't anything chilling about it. I mean, I don't understand why in the world people thought that it was good. Like, it's like it was clearly obvious who it was. It's clearly obvious who the killer was. It just wasn't good. Kiss the Girls would have gotten a mention here, except at least Carrie Ills in there was actually fine as the killer. Monica Potter. And Monica Potter is certainly not a bad actor. Or a bad actress. But it was silly. It was another silly one, and it wasn't scary. And I'm not even saying that this is more psychological horror, but this deserves a mention because it tried to present something as being really scary, the kidnapping and all that stuff and everything, and it just wasn't. It just really, really wasn't scary. It wasn't something that you could particularly enjoy. The ending sequence in particular was ridiculous. It was just Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman was great in it, and that was fine. And Monica Potter certainly wasn't terrible, but just a lot of it was just blah. I mean, it was just really, really blah. For any kind of murder mystery or kidnapping mystery or psychological horror stuff, it did not work at all. And number 92, and this is going to be a quick one, but Hellraiser 2 to 9,000, I don't know, 10, 11, I think that they got at this point. I've seen enough of them where it's like, have I seen every single one of them? No. I know the 2 came out in 2005, which was ridiculous. But the first one, Clive Barker certainly attacked the body horror aspect, and there was some good stuff with it. The second one wasn't really all that good, and by the third one, you're just like, really? I think third Hellraiser, Hell on Earth, if I remember right. Just so much. Pinhead was a really cool-looking, villain. Really cool-looking villain. And the demons, and the puzzle box, the Pandora's box. That was some cool stuff. The problem is none of the stuff was scary, and none of the kills, especially in the sequels, were any good at all. None of the characters were interesting. You didn't sympathize with any of the heroes. None of it. It was just straight up gore for the sake of it. And unfortunately, that doesn't usually work in horror. Sometimes it does if you play for laughs. But this just didn't work at all. So all the Hellraiser sequels, especially 3 and on, make it. Number 91, Dreamhouse. Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz in a movie about a potential haunted house. Is that something I could interest you in? Yeah. And it was shit. I can't believe it was such shit. And I love Daniel Craig and I love Rachel Weisz. Rachel Weisz is an unbelievably gorgeous woman and a great actress. And not necessarily in that order. And Daniel Craig's been great as Bond. This just wasn't good. It's like, it was so obvious where it was going, and it's like, it was kind of the same with What Lies Beneath. It was a short story that was stretched out way too far. And I think this movie is only 100 minutes. And I don't know, it might have been 90 minutes. But it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous just how short-sighted it was, and how obvious, the whole thing was with any twists and turns could be seen coming a mile away. There was nothing really scary about it. And just anything that could have worked with it didn't. It ultimately did not work. It was just bad. It was just bad. It was even the mood and the atmosphere didn't really work. It just wasn't very good. It just wasn't very good. I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to go to Number 90, and this is where I'm going to end the show, Holloman. Now, yeah, I know this is more sci-fi-ish type horror, and it was by Paul Verhoeven, a pumped up version of the Invisible Man. If you want to see a gorilla try to be brought back from invisibility and then die, and see what would happen if Donkey Kong had something happen to him, well, then you might enjoy part of the sequence in this movie. Kevin Bacon is a scientist, or just or somebody, or hell, he could have been the janitor for how smart he was, but he got injected with the stuff and was invisible. But he kind of went nuts because he couldn't be seen, and attacked, if I remember right, Rana Mitra. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She was in The Life of David Gale, which is another movie. It's going to be on my worst movies of worst movies of all time list. That was absolute shit. In fact, I can't even believe Life of David Gale was ever made. But Elizabeth Shue's in it. But it's just it was interesting at first because you felt with him that he was trying to it's like, okay, he was doing this exploring, and oh hey, I can get away with this and I can do this kind of stuff. But then unfortunately he started to go more and more mad because they couldn't find a way to reverse it. And yeah, I mean, okay, maybe he shouldn't have gone and raped that woman, and he shouldn't have tried killing people and succeeded in killing people. But yeah, Hollow Man ended really goofy. The whole thing of burning the guy and then the guy coming back to life, it was just so ridiculous. Nobody knew, nobody cared. The special effects were the best part of the damn movie. But Paul Verhoeven, the Starship Troopers movie, breathed new life into his career. This pretty much killed it off. Hollow Man was really, really bad. And I mean really bad. Just Kevin Bacon, Elizabeth Shue, everybody in it. And I mean that poor computer-generated gorilla. Poor Donkey Kong. Anyway, folks, that's what I gotta say. So, do you agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Do you think that these movies that I've listed, am I being too harsh on them? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Also, it's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.